All right. We are so glad to have you here, and I want to recognize, as I said, what is this day about? Next week we'll be focusing on our Southern Baptist mission opportunities to give this Christmas season for Bring a Gift to Jesus. But I wanted to focus you on our Global Impact Ministry partners today. So we have 6 of them. We have more, but 6 of them were able to be here and man a table. As one lady told me, she said, "Don't you say man a table again." She said, "You say woman a table." All right? So we've got some ladies that are doing that as well. But I wanted to just recognize Tammy Chan of Grand Prairie Homeless Outreach Organization. She is not in the room. She gave a testimony first service. She's upstairs in the Spanish service right now, getting translated into Spanish. And also the wonderful people from Pregnancy Resource Center here in Grand Prairie. Would you all stand? Some of them are in here and some of them are upstairs because Miss Monica, she speaks Espanol. So she's upstairs and giving a testimony right now upstairs. Also, our Wycliffe missionaries, would you stand? Ed and Beth gave a testimony, the brides, this morning. Paul and Joyce Setter are also here. Mark and Elka Karen are here. And also Kelly Martin is over here. And they will be out the table. We'll have them out the table for just a few minutes after the service. So those are the 3 that shared testimonies in first service. You get to hear 3 others that are a little more on the international side of the hallway. And I wanted to share with you who's here. So let me do just that, and I'm going to get out of the way, and then they can just follow one another, and I'll wrap things up as they finish. So in a moment, you're going to hear Whitney Blaine come, and she is one for Israel. Now, I was hopeful to have Dr. Sharif come and speak to us, but the guy's kind of busy. You know, he left Israel and came to Dallas a few days ago, and I thought maybe we could have him today, but we got Whitney, right? And you're just as good, right? And that is her husband Brian beside her. So we're so thankful. A very recent partnership that we have connected with, and that is James Like. James, just go ahead and stand, brother. And he's got his Texas Longhorns on there, so that ought to help on the love offering right there. Amen. And who knows what will happen today at noon, but we'll see if they get in, right? You're hopeful, we're hopeful. So James we've been praying about getting involved in a sex trafficking ministry for a few years. We thought we had a lady that was going to help us run that right here at our church, and it just didn't work out for us. James spoke to our men back in October, and his ministry is called One Life because they save one life at a time. And he spoke to our men in October, but he's going to be coming and sharing how he got involved from being a real estate agent to being involved in the sex trafficking ministry. And man, it is so big, you just don't realize how massive it is. And I-35 is like one of the main drags, right, down into Mexico. But he'll be coming to share after that. And then I wanted to also introduce to you Mark Stern, and he'll be our 3rd speaker this morning. And his wife, Paula, is here. And how do I know she's Paula? Because she said, "Pastor, I'm going to say this in a way you'll always remember." She said, "I'm Paul, like the Apostle Paul, Allah." And it stuck. So Paula is here. But Mark happens to be, I've got his card right here that he sent to me in a note a few weeks back, but he's their connection officer at Voice of the Martyrs. Voice of the Martyrs is doing things that we just simply can't do without any of these 3 organizations. They're in ministries that we desperately need a partner so that we can get involved in helping as a gospel-minded, mission-going and sending and praying church. that we have them to help us in these areas, and we can support them, and they go in these arenas for us where we could not go without them. So we're so thankful. And I'm going to ask Whitney to come first. And I don't know, are you bringing Brian or not? He gets off at this point? Okay. He's at the booth. But Whitney, thank you. Many of us remember Leslie, but this is Whitney. And Whitney took Leslie's place when Leslie moved on. Yes? We welcome you.
Very difference. Thank you so much, Pastor Barry. Such a joy to be here with you this morning. Enjoy getting to know Pastor Barry over the phone a little bit recently. I have some notes because I don't want to forget to say important things, so forgive me. And I tend to ramble when I get excited. So just so grateful to be standing alongside the other ministries that have presented already this morning. We had the privilege of being in the first service and to listen to Monica and Tammy and Beth and, I'm sorry, Ed. Thank you. I couldn't remember your first name. But the common thread between what we're all doing is the fact that everywhere life is heavy and people are searching for meaning and purpose, and the answer is Christ, period. And I love just how the Lord uses the body to share that message in different contexts. And we were reminded a little bit about the Great Commission a bit ago as we were leaving the first service. And I had made a note of this, but I want you to think about why we should, as Christians, why we should care about a tiny nation of 9 million people in the Middle East. We can go through kind of the high-level topic of, the Israelites are God's chosen people. He established the nation of Israel thousands and thousands of years ago, and that's where the early church was established. It was in Jerusalem that the church was born. That's where Christ came into the world as a little baby. And so the first church, the church fathers, the early church members, all of them were Jewish men and women and children who believed that their Messiah had come. Arise, shine, for your light has come. They saw it. Their hearts were not hardened, and they believed that their Messiah had come, and he will come again. But only 30,000 people or so out of those 9 million in Israel still believe that Christ is the Messiah. A little over a year ago, when I came on board with One for Israel, that was the thing that just touched my heart so much when I realized that the truth of Christ has been intentionally suppressed for thousands of years in Israel and around the world among the Jewish people. And I grew up in a really traditional Southern Baptist church down in Houston, big church. I don't remember a lot of teaching on Israel, and the teaching that I do remember was that, I just kind of had this impression that the Israelites were the people that just complained all the time, that they would just, Lord, why are we in the wilderness? Why are we, we had it so well, so good in Egypt. Why did we leave? And they would complain to Moses, and they would complain to the Lord. And time again, he would meet them and save them and rescue them and provide for them. And so, but that didn't really stick with me as in understanding that through the nation of Israel would come our Messiah as well. So we're Gentile believers. I think probably most of us in this room, I get that question a lot at work, are you Jewish? I said, no, I'm a Gentile believer, grafted into the vine that the Lord planted so many years ago. So give me a second, I'm going to check my notes. So one of the guiding passages and I'll tell you a little bit about what we actually do as a ministry, but I think more importantly is what guides us from Scripture to do what we do. So in Romans chapter 9 through chapter 10 verse 4, chapter 9 verse 30 through chapter 10 verse 4, Paul is writing to the Roman church, "What shall we say then? That Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained it, that is, a righteousness that is by faith, but that Israel, who pursued a law that would lead to righteousness, did not succeed in reaching that law. Why? Because they did not pursue it by faith, but as if it were based on works. They have stumbled over the stumbling stone. As it is written, behold, I am laying in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. Brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to God for them is that they may be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. For being ignorant of the righteousness of God and seeking to establish their own, they did not submit to God's righteousness. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. All eyes are on Israel right now, right? I mean, they are in the midst of some of the heaviest conflict they've ever been a part of. It's going to be a long road ahead. This is not going to be over quickly. So One for Israel was established as a Bible college in 1990. We've trained up 1,000 pastors plus who are now serving throughout Israel and the Middle East. You have Jewish men, Arab men studying scripture together at our Bible college. That does not happen apart from Christ. So they are leading the way in uniting brothers and sisters across Israel and the Middle East right now. And so Christ, we hear a lot about, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Who's the peace of Jerusalem? Who is it? It's Jesus. The only peace that's going to endure. There's no politics. There's no legality, nothing that's going to bring peace to Jerusalem. But Christ will once again set his foot on the Mount of Olives in victory and in glory. And all Israel will be saved. We don't know what that means necessarily. There's a lot of ideas about what that's going to look like exactly and what it's going to mean and how it's all going to play out. But what I like to remind people when they ask, what's going on over there? Is it this prophecy or that prophecy being fulfilled? And what we can know is that it is being fulfilled in one way or another. And God's perfect timing, in his perfect way, he will bring it to pass. And so we are to operate with an urgency to share the lost with every single person that we come across on this planet. And so One for Israel, is established for a specific group of people. It is an initiative of Jewish-born believers in Christ who are reaching their brothers and sisters. And so in the last couple of months, our focus has really obviously been meeting physical needs. We've been working for a long time to really plant the seeds of truth about Yeshua, so obviously through the Bible College, but the other major arm of our ministry is online. And during the COVID lockdowns in Israel, which were some of the most harsh in the world, our online evangelism just exploded. I mean, it's viral times 10. So we have Hebrew language and English language gospel videos sharing, apologetics type videos where we have our faculty members disputing rabbinic arguments against Jesus. The rabbis say this, Jesus was this, they say, no, this is who he truly is. So we have that kind of thing. We have beautiful music videos of Hebrew and Arabic and English language together, worship videos, filmed in Jerusalem with this beautiful scenery that just makes you think of God's majesty. And then, of course, a ton of just gospel-saturated content to share the love of Christ and the truth. So we're just super grateful for the Oaks and your support over the years. I think the last thing I want to make sure I say is just to remind you that the reason we should care about the tiny nation of Israel is because of those people that God established there that we know Christ now. So the wave went out from the early church, to Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And we're their ends of the earth. So it came to us, and now the wave is going back into Israel. And this time of war is really shaking people up and making them ask questions. They want to know meaning and truth. And our people, our staff, we've got, sorry, I don't want to take too much time. We have about a third of our staff, so like 8 of our staff members over there are serving in the military now. They've been called up to the reserves. If you don't know, everyone in Israel has to serve in the military when they graduate high school. And so men for 3 years, women for 2. So everybody then is in the reserves. So you've got 8 of our staff members who've been called to fight. We have a couple of them who are company commanders. They're on the front lines in some of the hardest areas right now. We've got staff member spouses and children who are serving. But the rest of them, you know, they've turned their focus to really meeting the physical needs. And we're establishing a structure for people to be able to receive trauma counseling. Can you imagine the kind of trauma that is being experienced right now over there? So we are working again with others to make sure that people can get the biblical counseling they need free of charge for as long as they need it for the years to come. So we're not just focused on right now, but we're really thinking about long term. And then we've committed a certain amount of money to all 24 of the communities that were destroyed in the attacks on October 7th. We'll be helping to rebuild those communities physically, but we have such a unique opportunity to have an impact on the spiritual landscape, not just the physical. And so we just thank you for sharing in that work with us. The work is important everywhere, but as long as we're focused on sharing the truth of Christ, that's what's going to change hearts and minds and lives and nations. And every tongue will confess that Christ is Lord.
Well, good morning. I'm excited because the Longhorns are the Big 12 champions. We waited long enough for that. I had to say something this morning. And so thank you, Pastor, for inviting us to be a part and for partnering with us. My name is James Like. I am married, although I've been here twice and she hasn't been with me. The kids have a Christmas program practice at our church, at our home church this morning. I'm married to Jesse. I have 4 daughters. So if you're an intercessory prayer person, thank you for putting me on your list. So I have Jaden, Jaslyn, Juliana, and Josie. And even our dog's name before she passed was named Journey. So everybody starts with a J. And so it's all fun stuff. But I represent One Life. I am, as Pastor said, a businessman. I've been in real estate for over 20 years. And I shared this a little bit with the men, but I've made about as much money as you can possibly make, and for one guy to make, I think, and none of it brought any happiness. None of it really fulfilled and brought full contentment for me. I mean, it was nice when you drive away in your dream car, you buy your dream house, or you fly first class. I hope I never get away from that. But you know, none of it brought fulfillment. And I remember sitting there and just spending time with the Lord, and I just heard that whisper that we hear sometimes within ourselves that said, James, I have not called you to be a passenger on a cruise ship. I've called you to man a battleship. And so about 2 years ago, my wife and I, we partnered up with a sex trafficking rescue organization, which happens to be my pastor in my church. And he's already rescued more than 10,000 little girls and boys out of sex trafficking in the last 15 years. But we've rescued about 6,500 in just like the last 4 or 5 years alone. And so we had to jump in the fight. We had to jump in the fight. At the time, I had no desire to go to the Amazon River down at the bottom of Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. But I heard about a house in Brazil that needed to be purchased. And that house needed to be purchased because there were girls that were rescued out of the drug and sex cartels of the Amazon River. And those girls needed to have a place to go. And the person that was renting the house to our pastors there, to our people that run the home, they actually said, we're going to sell this. We're going to sell this house, and you guys need to move out. So we didn't want that to happen. Our pastor said, man, we are so headlong. We had a men's meeting, and he said, we're so headlong into all these ministries. And he said, if we've got $4 million a month coming in, we have $4.5 million going out. He goes, we have to do something. Some people have to step up. When he said that, I felt in my spirit to purchase this house. $85,000. I didn't have $85,000. Number one, we went to negotiations, and we used our auspices, us and our team, and we actually got it down to 52 grand. But I still didn't have 52,000. But I went to pastor and I told him, my wife and I are going to buy that house. And that was crazy. I'm crazy. So it just fits right along with it, you know. And do you know, the day before we were supposed to close, the rest of our funds came in, and we were able to send a check for $52,000 to Brazil for this home for rescued girls. It was amazing. Yes. So that was the start, though. And here's the thing, like, every one of us is called to serve. Every one of us is called. I love that. At the Oaks, everybody serves. I've been looking at that's a bold claim from a pastor. But listen to that, because you're not called to just ride on this cruise ship. You're called to go into battle. It was the same thing for me. So they asked me, they said, James, would you like to go see the house down in the Amazon? Well, I like a good trip. And they said, we're going to eat good food. We're going to stay in a hotel that has a pool. Now, don't think it's too glamorous. It's in the middle of the Amazon. But anyways, they didn't tell me about the giant mosquitoes and the piranhas and all the other stuff that comes with it, almost capsizing boats as you go upriver or whatever. And so I decided to go. And when I went, I started to meet these little girls who are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, some even younger, that have been prostituted up to 40 times a day so that their families can eat, because sometimes it's their parents pimping them out. Some of them they come because of they're an illegitimate child from their parent who is owned by the cartel, who is also a prostitute. There's all kinds of stories, but here's the thing. I could sit here and I could tell you all the horrors of what are going on there, all the things. You can go and you can look all that stuff up online. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on what Jesus does whenever people like us partner together and come together. Because here's what happens. When these girls come to us, you know, let me just say this. When the government gets their hands on things, it usually doesn't turn out very well. Okay? You can like that or not like that, it's okay. But the foster care system in the United States, they say there's over 420,000 foster kids right now. I heard a study say that there's a little over 400,000 churches in America. When will the church stand up and the people of God stand up and take over a failed foster care system that dumps kids right into sex trafficking when they turn 18 and dumps them to the street? Who will stand up? So you can imagine, and I don't do a lot on the state side. I'll just be honest with you. I have friends that do. I support ministries that do. I'm in Amazon. I'm in Costa Rica. I'm in Cuba. I'm in Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. And so, like, I'm learning Spanish, okay? Like, I don't know why God called me to the Spanish nations, but he did. And I'm thankful for it. And one day I'll be able to go speak Spanish without an interpreter up there. But when I seen those girls, my heart began to break. So we had to do more. And God said, man the battleship. So just this last year, I began to pray for a network of people. I began to pray for people to kind of come and surround us. And the Lord began to say, start selling everything. Start selling and liquidate everything and follow me. So I'm in that transition right now of selling everything that we have, anything the Lord guides me to sell. He hasn't said my personal house yet. I hope he doesn't. I hope I get to stay there for a while. But if he says do it, I'll do it. And what was so amazing about how the network of God, when you step out in faith and you say, God, I'll go, where God guides, God provides. You've already heard me talk about the financial side, how he provided the money to buy the house. Well, he provides the network as well. And I happened to sell a little house in Alvarado, and one of your members of your church, Rick, he actually ends up buying that house, right? And which was an amazing situation. He can tell you about it, but God provided something that he needed, and he connected us together as believers. And here I am, a Pentecostal dude, sorry, pastor, in a Baptist church, sharing about the ministry. But isn't it really about the big C anyway? Isn't it about just proclaiming the good news? And so back to what I was saying, there's all kinds of organizations that rescue girls and that do all of this. And I have one in Costa Rica right now that I am working with, that Jesus is not the center. So guess what I'm having tomorrow? I'm having a coming to Jesus meeting with the organization to let them know, look, here's my ultimatum. If Jesus is not the center, I don't want to be a part of it. Because true freedom comes when Jesus brings the freedom. True freedom comes whenever Jesus is the center of it and he changes the hearts and the minds. Because you can rescue a person and bring them out of something. But if real change doesn't happen through Jesus, and real life, heart change, eternal change doesn't happen inside of that, they will go back. Whether it's an addict or a sex trafficked person, they'll find more freedom. So many girls go back into sex trafficking because they felt more freedom in captivity than they do at the rescue home. But for us, we want to see them. We want to see them saved. In May, last story, and then I'll get down. But in May, I was down in the Amazon and I was checking on her home, and a 13-year-old girl came up in a cocktail dress and high heels, and she was crying. And she said to our pastor's wife there, she said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here. I don't want to. She said, I've already been prostituted 4 times today. This is like noon. She goes, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of this. And so my pastor's wife happened to be wearing these sandals that she got when she baptized her daughter in the Jordan River in Israel. And she had bought these sandals from a vendor there. It was her favorite sandals. And the Lord spoke to her and said, take your high heels off and put the sandals on so she can have a new walk. She goes, God, those are my favorite sandals. Those are my favorite. They fit me. They're not going to fit her. Do you know, she pulled her high heels off. She put her shoes on. They fit perfectly. Last Sunday, we baptized that young girl at 13 years old. It was so amazing. Here's the heartbreak of the story, okay? She went and picked up another 13-year-old and another 11-year-old and brought them to us. 3 girls got rescued that day in May. But here's the thing, when the girls get rescued, this is where money becomes so important, guys. And nobody likes to talk about money, but God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he owns the grass that they eat. He can provide everything we need. And if he's leading you, you can give to all these worthy ministries that were here today. But here's the thing, these girls come to us. They have every STD you can imagine. We've seen girls dramatically healed from AIDS and syphilis and all the STD, sexually transmitted diseases that you can imagine. They have these. They have such trauma because they've been running through these things for so many years. And so they come to us, but here's what happened. All 3 of those girls, 13, 13, and 11, all were pregnant the day we rescued them. We had no clue until we seen the baby bump a couple months ago in a picture. So that can either break your heart or that could cause you to take action. Straight up. So guess what we did? Last Sunday we announced we are going to be building in the Amazon, building or buying our 21st rescue baby home that we have around the globe so that we can bring these girls in and we can raise them up and show them how to be a mom that follows the tenets of faith and the Bible, and show them how to raise them up and break the generational curses that have followed them with their mom and their grandma and all these back layers that have been struggling and stuck in the cartel prostitution. They're going to be rescued. So our next big project, and it just so happened that Pastor called me on Tuesday, but last Sunday we announced this house. So we are working feverishly right now, and hopefully by the spring we'll either have purchased another house, a safe house to put them in, or God's going to provide a way for us to build it, buy it. It's very fresh. But I'm excited today because God is still in the rescue business. He's still doing amazing things. Thank you, Pastor, for the opportunity to share. You guys come see me in my little booth. Some of y'all got to play that xylophone that we picked up in Uganda, Africa. I've got a card back there. You thought these were notes, didn't you? Now, I could talk all day without notes, but this is my little note card. It's my prayer card. If you'll pick one of those up and remember me, prayer is very important to me. This is some deep stuff, man. I have so many bad dreams from the enemy bringing dreams against me to try to get me to quit this, but we won't quit. We won't relent. We'll keep going. So definitely pray for us, and then pick you up some candy and come meet me. Sign up for our newsletter. I want to meet you. I say, come meet me. I ain't nothing. I want to meet you guys and do all that. But thanks again, Pastor, and God bless you guys.
In Colombia, Rollo delivers Bibles and shares the gospel in guerrilla-controlled areas. Every time he leaves, he knows it's possible he will never come back. In Iran, Mariam smuggles Bibles to desperate Christians who have never owned their own copy of God's Word. In Nigeria, Elizabeth and her 5 children are now on their own because her husband was brutally murdered for his Christian witness. And in China, Wang Yi is serving 9 years in prison. His crime? Leading an unregistered church. These are just a few of the millions of persecuted Christians living and serving in the world's most dangerous places to follow Christ. He promised that his followers would be persecuted, and we are committed to serving them. For more than 50 years, the Voice of the Martyrs has served these bold and courageous believers by offering direct help when they face persecution, delivering Bibles to believers at any cost, and equipping frontline workers to advance the gospel. VOM also tells the stories of our persecuted brothers and sisters, which inspire other believers to pray and advance the gospel where they are. The Bible tells us to remember the prisoner as if you were in prison with them, and when one part of the body suffers, other parts of the body suffer with them. Join this global movement to support our persecuted Christian family around the world. Find out more at vom.org.
Good morning. My name is Mark. I'm with the Voice of the Martyrs. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Pastor, for inviting us and just getting to hear the stories of these other ministries in the previous service, and today it's just powerful. Also getting to experience new brother being baptized today. Austin's cousin, I think Yosei, I think was his name. Anyway, God bless you. We just got a report this week from one of our frontline workers who reported in Israel that one of the soldiers, before being activated, Israeli soldiers, was baptized and confessed his faith in Jesus Christ. Isn't that great? Well, imagine if you came today and you had to arrive at a different time. You came a different route than everyone else. You came through a different entrance. Or imagine that instead of meeting in this beautiful facility the Lord's provided, you're meeting out in the woods out by Joe Pool Lake in a hidden area. Or imagine sitting in here and looking around and wondering, who is the secret police that's here? Am I going to be arrested today? If you were in Mauritania, if you were in Nigeria or China or Southeast Asia, you wouldn't be imagining. It's real. Voice of the Martyrs has been in existence for over 55 years because of the obedience, the yes that Richard and Sabina Wormbrand said as they were imprisoned, persecuted. 14 years for Richard, 14 years in prison, 3 years for Sabina, and she was without him those other years. But that simple obedience changed history. And now we're in over 72 countries in the most difficult and dangerous places in the world, serving in many ways. Many of our believers are in prison. You saw some Bible smuggling that was going on. Many of those that we support in prison are there because they're bringing the Word of God. To most people, it's their first Bible. Some of our families that we support pay the ultimate price, and they are martyrs, and that's where the name of our ministry came from. Martyr means witness. And we come alongside the widows, the orphans. In fact, I learned this week in Nigeria, northeast Nigeria, where there's over 6,000 widows now. Our frontline workers don't call them widows. They're called women of honor. And you know what? Sorry. They encourage us. We're there. We think we're encouraging them. They encourage us. And they have embraced the word that says, it has been granted unto you. It has been granted unto you to suffer for the gospel. It's a gift. I don't understand that, but Jesus does, and it's a gift to him. Bibles for every believer. That's something we believe so much about. I appreciate the folks from Wycliffe. My folks were trained under Wycliffe. They were translators in West Africa where I was born. And we bring in Bibles, whether they are print and ink, they are digital or audio. This year we'll bring in over 1,700,000 Bibles to believers that are seeking and waiting. They've waited their life for their first and probably their last Bible. 700,000 of those this year going into Iran, the fastest growing church in the world, believe it or not. Iran, that's causing all these problems with Hamas and all these other things, and yet God is moving in that nation. People are receiving dreams. They're asking questions, and someone tells them about Jesus or gives them a Bible. And we're going to be brothers and sisters with them for all eternity. Our third area that we support is frontline workers. We provide training. We provide goods, services. We come alongside them. We don't know. One of our frontline workers was interviewed by Todd Nettleton, Voice of the Martyrs radio host. 4 days later, they were martyred. So we don't know what their future is, but we know we'll see them in eternity. We have a book at our table, and in fact, there's a QR code there. If you'll point your phone to it, a little yellow URL will highlight. You can click that, sign up, come by our table, we'll give you that book. It's Todd Nettleton's book. It's 40 devotionals, short stories that will connect you and inspire you to pray. And then the app on the right, that's a simple thing to do, is just look up the app. Every day there's a prayer. Today we're praying for brothers and sisters in Afghanistan. You'll have a weekly broadcast by Todd, and then our books and materials and movies you could see on the app. So if you don't have a smartphone or don't have the capability of doing that, we have just a simple card if you'll fill that out at our table. So thank you all, and thank you, Pastor Barry, for inviting us and your support over the years. We appreciate you so much.
Would you give our missionaries just a round of applause? And thank you so much. We literally are so thankful for you, because you're helping us do things that we just simply cannot do without an organization just like you to help us. And we're going to do two things here as we wrap up the service. We're going to have our offering. Just ask the ushers to come and join me here at the altar, and we're going to do that. And then I want to leave you with a charge of a word as they're coming, and we have our offering today. I want to leave you, I'm not preaching. I got in the first service, they applauded. I don't know what to think about that, you know, and the abbreviated service, they love that too. But we're going to take our offering right now, and we want to pray for these ministries, and we're going to do so. So, James, thank you, brother. Whitney, thank you. Man, what's going on in Israel? Isn't that something that Mark's testimony even got over to Israel as well? It's just a hot spot, and we need to pray. And we sure support Israel here in our church, and we want to be praying for them. Isn't that something that an Israeli soldier gets saved, baptized before he goes off in battle? That's just incredible. So we're going to take our offering, and then we're going to have a closing prayer for these ministries, and then they're going to be back at their table for just a little bit. If you did not get to go by and see them, they're inviting you. Believe me, there are some young people. You know what's going to happen today? I mean, your pastor's going to speak this is a prophetic word. There are some young people that God is going to call into missions today. It's going to happen. Your heart's going to be stirred at a table, or it's been stirred here in this service, and God is going to call you out to join those of us that are laborers in his field. And I just believe, I sense it. I sensed it when you all were speaking, that God is calling some here today to come into ministry. And so you may need to speak to somebody personally. Listen, run to me. I'll be so tickled and honored to speak to you about ministry. I really will. But God is speaking that. I just sense it today. Let's take our offering, and we'll have prayer. And then one other thing I want to remind you of is, after you've had a round around the tables and get to talk with our folks again, those of you that can stay and help, the Rejoice sign is going up. It's our greatest piece of advertisement that we have around here. That 90-foot long sign, and there's one point that it's almost 30 feet high. Everybody knows the Rejoice sign. If they don't know the name of the Oaks, I'll say, have you ever seen the Rejoice sign on I-20? Oh, yes, that's you? That's your church? I said, yes, that's us. So we're going to put the Rejoice sign up. I need some helping hands to do so right after the service as well. All right? Let's take